before people are interested.
But you know what? If you send me an email, you'll get a response, and it will be from me.
And I really don't have any desire to.
You haven't watched the trailer at all?
No.
A lot of people haven't heard of the couch division, so
It's a comfy division to be in, though.
it's super comfy. It's almost too comfy at times.
Your response to teams who see that as a new potential issue with districts?
Yeah, that's really a two-pronged question.
Let's see if there's any damage from that fall. There was. They snapped 330. Still on their back. 6 seconds to go.
Or was the highest ranked, but then as votes continue to pour in, everything kind of changed around a little bit.
So we forget about that.
Here, guys. Tonight on First Updates Now, Candidly Speaking, visibility on the field, and we're talking all about Steamworks today. We're going to be looking at what variabilities teams might be facing in the weeks to come. I'm Tyler, and joining me is the always amazing Karthik. Karthik, my good friend, what's going on with you today? Are you ready for another episode of Candidly Speaking?
I'm pumped for today's episode just because I'm pumped for the season.
Let's do it.
All right,
What's your
and
intro
tonight
guest for today?
our special guest is Miss Pauline Tasci. Pauline is the lead mechanical mentor for Team 3476, not 3467, Code Orange, a first Orange County chair, and a SpaceX propulsion intern. She'll also be showcasting host for us here at the Fun Network.
Yeah.
So, welcome to Candidly Speaking, Pauline. How are you doing?
Thanks, I'm good. How about you guys?
We're ready for this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, lots to talk about, and we're going to get right into it today, guys. With week one of Steamworks right around the corner, there's a lot of questions that hopefully will be answered over these next few weeks, and hopefully in the area that we're looking in, right, in the method that we're looking at. There's a lot of interesting things with this game, a lot of excitement with this game, but also some difficulties and some possibilities are coming up. Speaking of which, before we get into these discussion topics we're going to get into today, if you have a question for us that we'll answer at the end of the show, make sure you tag at First Updates Now, and we'll get to that near the end of the show for you. We got a sneak peek of how Steamworks played. I mean, last week we had the official Week 0 event in Nashua. Some very interesting aspects, some high-level play even coming from there, as well as we also saw some kind of interesting difficulties with that when it comes to the camera and visibility and spectators. But let's take a look at the end of one of our matches from last week. Oh, the audio's not going? That's all right. No problem. So you guys saw in here, I'm just going to give a little bit of breakdown on this then. Actually, I think scaling was something that was, I don't know if that was necessarily surprising us, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit, but scales were abound. Lots of fuel flying everywhere. I know I talked to 125. They even got a warning from one of the referees there and realized all the head refs are there. They're like, you can't shoot too many balls outside of the field or we're going to disable you or something like that. But I don't know. Why don't we get your guys' reactions on here? I don't know if you got a chance to see any of this Week 0 play here, but what did you guys think about the Nashville event or any of the other Week 0 events you might have saw in the last week or so?
I mean, usually when it comes to these Week 0 events, I don't try to pay too much attention to what the robots are doing because realistically the robots aren't even finished at that point. So it's not really a good indicator of anything. However, it is our first chance to see an actual field in action. And I have some concerns. So when I first saw First Steamworks, I was like, I love this game. I think it's going to be super spectator friendly. There's so much happening. There's lots of distinct game tasks that robots will be doing. It'll be cool. And I thought one of the coolest things to see is just how quickly robots can shoot balls and how they can just churn them out. And then I saw the video. And every time I wanted to see a robot like 125, I couldn't see them because they were obstructed by the airships. So right now, if you were on the scorer's table side of the field, and at a lot of venues, not the championship, but at a lot of venues, there's audience on both sides of the fields, you won't see shooting robots. They're going to be completely blinded out by the airship. And I think that's going to be kind of a bummer. And also, you won't be able to see 2 out of the 3 lifts, and you won't be able to see the davits. It just seems like the visibility issues for spectators are a lot bigger challenge than even for the drive teams.
It goes beyond that too.
Nick, can you bring up the field view again when you get an opportunity? I'm sorry, Pauline, just so we can kind of take a look at that, by the way. Yeah, go ahead, Pauline.
It goes beyond just the audience. Even for scouters in the stands, they can't see everything the robots are doing at all. So we have no idea what's going on behind that airship. So we can't take like proper scouting data as a team.
Yeah, and scouting, I think, there have been numerous threads on Chief about this. Like, scouting was going to be hard enough already for the boiler because it's like, how many balls did they just score? When teams are shooting 4, 5, 6, 7, or 19 balls a second, you can't even count that. But when you can't see there's going to be often times where you have two robots shooting behind there. You'll have no idea what's going on. You're not going to see who's placing gears. I mean, I was talking to one team who's got a lot of students on their team. I was like, you might even want to put 6 scouts on one side of the field and 6 scouts on the other side of the field to try and sort things out. But that's marginally
Hopefully you have
ridiculous.
enough people for that, huh?
Well, it reminds me of 2009 when HOT had 18 scouts. They had 6 scouts scouting robots scoring, 6 scouts looking at robots trailers, and 6 scouts looking at human players. And I mean, more power to you if you can do that. It's like more power to you if you can build 3 robots. But I mean, we're asking a lot. So I'm interested to see where cameras are going to be positioned in week 1 to see if they can come up with something. I know I'm working with all the game announcers and MCs in Ontario, and I told them, hey, walk around the field. Don't think you're just going to be able to game announce from the scorer's table because you might not see everything. We're going to experiment, try and find some different things out there.
That's an interesting point to add in is I wonder, as First looks at it, we've been told time and time again that First is at this point not interested in releasing standards for doing webcasts and that sort of thing. And I think we're going to see a lot of variability. I know on our end with First Game Day Live, Game Day Live, that we're concerned in regards to what we're going to be able to see from trying to do a commentator standpoint, even to the general public. And, if we're going to be on Twitch broadcasting and all these people who don't know what First is coming in, if they can't see the robots half the time, and that's right behind that airship there, that's going to be a very popular spot for a lot of robots to shoot fuel and in the boilers. And I wonder just, if we're going to see, an update of some sort of standard in regards to how cameras should be positioned. So, First has always been, they've always said they're about, the audience and getting them engaged and involved and showing things. And I mean, I like the game. I don't mind the airships, but clearly there's something that's, from a visibility standpoint, that's just not going to work out very well.
Yeah, I love the game. I think the airships are stupid. I don't think they need to be that big. I mean, I get a theme blimp, whatever. But I think at Championship last year, First that was their best webcast ever with the multiple cameras that they all had on one screen to shield left side, right side. Hopefully they'll do something again this year where you have that area behind the airship in front of the boiler drawn out. But on to the drive team side of things. So Pauline, does Code Orange have a full field this year to practice on?
We're still building it, but yeah, we will.
You will. Do you guys have any do you have any advice for that you've been giving to your drive coaches and your drive team about how to handle the various visibility issues in matches?
Yeah. So for us, we're trying to build as much obstruction as we can. Even if we're not building a full airship, we're marking it out, getting the height there just so our drivers are used to going around these obstacles and not being able to see. It's a big obstruction. So they need to be able to see something. So we're trying to put something there so they could get around. But that's the advice I'd give. Just put something there.
So I was trying to feed you guys a little bit on this. I'm not sure if either one of you saw the blog update actually from today from Frank Merritt.
I did not.
Yeah, let's Nick, can you bring that up? I just sent you the link on that as well. So there's
why didn't Ryan Hall post this?
He did.
Oh.
It was like 10 minutes before the show, so it's okay.
He probably didn't. No. So yeah, just a little bit before the show. So there's I'll just kind of read a little bit about it. So one of the things, Twitch is becoming a really big thing for First, and they're going to be trying to do different camera angles and different channels and trying to do some standardization between that. So just to read, it says, depending on internet availability at each venue, we'll attempt to have a multi-camera view in addition to the program view. The program view is generally what's shown to the audience screen at the event, where the multi-camera view would show each camera in a quadrant of their own. You'll note that events that list 2 channels for their broadcasts, if network capability is sufficient, the program will be on the lower number channel, and the multi-camera view will be on the higher number channel. If network compatibility is insufficient, both channels will show the same program view, but the chat in the higher numbered channel will include more snark. the heck's that mean at the end?
I think he says like the chat room that has more people in it will be like funnier. But I mean, that's cool. Like they're clearly thinking about this. So good. Awesome.
I'm happy they're thinking about it for sure.
Sorry, I'm reading the second part of the blog. Also, some of you may be tempted to bring fanciful weapons as part of your costume to events. Please rethink this, even if the weaponry is obviously non-functional. With over 140 events this season, many of which are in schools, you may be at a venue in which weapons of any kind, even obviously fake ones, are not allowed. Also, this is the kind of thing that can make people uncomfortable. We don't currently have a rule against this. I'm just asking you to reconsider it. Jesus God.
Venues have rules about it. I mean, it's not like you can bring in a freaking sword into the event. I mean, the venue's gonna stop you from doing that. Sorry, it's not in the first rules.
What idiot is going to bring a sword? Never mind. There's plenty of idiots in this program.
Someone probably did. That's why he's writing it.
Oh my God.
It's going to be a blog post at some point. Just to reiterate, this happened, and please don't bring in weapons.
I love that First is the organization that can ban hip hop music from their events, but won't ban weapons. That's amazing.
Just not hip hop artists from events, apparently.
Oh, people could be corrupted by the influence of those urban youths.
All right. So one thing I do want to mention in regards to the, I mean, I'm excited for the channel view thing with Twitch. I think that has a lot of possibility. The one thing I really hope though is I do hope that it all runs to the same chat. So because if their goal is to get, once again, people inspired about this stuff, and you want to get more engagement with it, you want to be able to have everybody in the same spot, right? So if you're all of a sudden diversifying who's in what chat room, and I'm thinking of how Twitch works for this, because you have to have 2 different channels for that. Now somebody like Blue Alliance could take it and run everything through one channel. That's possible to do that. But if they're just going on Twitch and watching it, if it's multiple channels, then there's going to be different chat rooms, I believe. I don't think you can do one.
There's pros and cons to that. I know when I like to watch webcasts, I hide the chat so I don't have to read the stupidity that goes on in there. So, like some of these chats.
That's you though. I mean, a lot of people like to engage and interact in chat. I mean, we were looking at chat right now for first updates now. And I love to see people talking and engaging there. Most people are smart.
I do enjoy this chat. I just think that some online chat rooms, especially during events, get very toxic. And I mean, like we saw the chaos that became the 118 YouTube comments. So like,
do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, we totally can talk about it. I thought it was ridiculous. Like,
why don't you? Let's throw something in here. Why don't you kind of describe what was going on and how you feel about that?
So a lot of these comments, I think they have been deleted or maybe like they've been hidden or whatever. Thankfully, but you went in there, and so here it goes to show the difference between the mentality on Chief Delphi and the mentality in the rest of the First community. Because on Chief Delphi, the response to 118's video was overwhelmingly positive. People are like, "Whoa, this is so cool!" It's like, "Wow, wow," and like you looked at the video, like it had a lot of upvotes, but then the number one comment that with like 60 upvotes was talking about how, like, look what mentor built robot BS or whatever. Then
what that comment was?
Sure. Do you have it?
It says, yeah. Nick posted, smell some BS somewhere. And right now there's no way this was built by students. I don't care what you said. I would like to see a speed run of the whole build.
This gets me so triggered.
And I mean, like, it's funny that they even say that, but because like 1114, we used to always get those comments, and then we did do a speed run of the build, for people to see, and they still made the comments. But there was one post in there, and it was allegedly from a former 118 member. I don't know if it's actually true, and she claimed that having been on 118 gave her depression and low self-esteem. And I'm just like, man, the comments generated as YouTube comments do, and it was like, I mean, Pauline, you say your trick, go. Tell me what you feel.
I'm so I didn't know that was the top comment on 118's video at all. I've been watching it a million times. I just haven't seen it. But I hate when people, just because a team is good, doesn't mentor built is such a broad term. Like, mentors are there to help you. It's just so stupid to me that people are like, oh, obviously I need to see this. I'm the police of first. Like, what the heck?
And I mean, having interacted closely with 118, especially in 2013 when we were on the same alliance, and then last year they came up to Canada to play, those kids know their stuff. Well, first of all, those kids have been, without really any mentor involvement, building some of the best Vex robots in the world. I can attest to that. So like, I mean, they're the real deal. Like, and I know, like, I think on Chief, we hit the other extreme where there's people out there who are like, oh, I don't believe there's ever been a robot that's all mentor built. I'm like, well, no, there are. Like, I'm not going to name names, but there are clearly teams in first.
You got to be realistic, yeah.
And I shouldn't say clearly because like clearly sounds like I'm assuming these things. I know of these teams. Like, I've talked to a mentor who says I don't like letting kids touch the robot. You know, like these. There are teams like this that exist. Marcus from 865 posted something along the lines where he was talking about his own experiences, what his team used to be like, how it was just mentors and they were terrible, and then when the students took over, they became good. You know, like so. But I just think it's kind of funny how much of a bubble CD really is in, and the reaction of the community at large to the 118 video was so different. Now, on the other hand, it's still minor because like that video is up to like 30,000, 40,000 views, you know, and it's got way
I think
more.
It's over 50,000 now, actually.
That is like that's phenomenal for our program in general. Just to see
wow, it was a mentor built video after all.
right. But I mean, like I just think these videos that 118 and 148 put out each year are just ridiculously inspiring, and they do so much for the community. You know.
Let me ask Nick. Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you can't hear his response. 148 disabled the comments in their video. Were they having issues too? Oh, Nick said no. He knew there was going to be issues ahead of time. Yeah. 148 knew there's going to be issues. So that's
on
11, smart thinking.
On 1114, for the first few years of putting stuff on YouTube, we allowed there to be comments. Then there'd always be the negativity. Then for a long time we disabled them, and then at a certain point we just said, hey, let it be what it is. But like, I think what people forget is that when you make these comments on the internet, there's real people who have to deal with these comments. And so put yourself in the shoes of being a student on 118, and you just have random people on the internet basically saying you guys are too dumb to have built this robot. Like, the kids on 1114
right? Yeah,
totally felt that over the years. When people would be like, "Oh, look, there's the robot the GM built for you." Like, they were basically saying that the kids weren't capable of that, and it was insulting, and it really affects you. Like, until you deal with shit on the internet where people talk trash about you, you don't really know how much it hurts, and it sucks. And so, like, these, anonymous, D-bags, like, man, go suck an egg.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on just a little bit. I do want to tell a little story from when I was a student, and kind of getting both sides of it. So when I was a student on my team, so this was way back in 2001 through 2004 seasons, there was a robot that was extremely dominant during that time, and that was 71, right? Beatty Hammond, was three in my high school term. Beatty won 3 out of 4 years. So like, just put that in perspective, that they won the world championships 3 out of 4 years. And on a team that was they were a moderate team, we had some success to it, but that's all we thought is Beatty was mentor built. That was the only thing in our head the whole time. And it's crazy to think now that, I've gone through the process of being a mentor on a team that's done very, very well, and just seeing what goes through that. Yeah, there are some things that are mentor build, and those things that mentors help with and assist in. In the teams that I've been part of, our team that I've been part of, that we always shoot for a 50-50. And it's crazy to think, like, I look back in retrospect, like, how the hell did I ever have that opinion and not just have respect and admiration for the awesome creations that they've had? And to me, like, where my failure was as a student was having jealousy instead of trying to figure out what they were doing so my team could get better. And that's something that I think, from a mindset perspective, that I'm sorry, if your only thought is jealousy and that's mentor build, your team is going to be shit. Oh. And you need to change your mindset and figure out, what can I do to bring my team up to that level, and either realize that you're going to work your ass off and get that going, or you're not going to have what it takes. And you need to look at yourself as a team and figure out where you want to go and where you want to grow.
I touched on this in my TED talk, but like, John Abley, member of the board of directors for FIRST, which used to be the chairman of the board, likes to say that there's 2 ways to compete. You can rise above your opponent, or you can try and drag your opponent down. And there's this culture that we live in, and it's not just a FIRST related thing, but where people, it's easier to drag others down. When you're in high school, there's the the kid with the highest marks. How do people treat the kid with the highest marks? The reaction is like, oh, they probably just stay at home and study all the time. They probably don't have any friends, you know? Or like when, you know, you see like the really popular guy or girl, it's like, oh, well, I bet you they're like a real, you know, jackass or a bitch or something. You know, it's like, maybe they're really popular because they're likable, you know, and like maybe these teams who have really awesome robots have awesome robots because they're good at engineering. I don't know. You know, why do we have to try and assume that, oh, they've broken the rules, they've cheated, or that sort of thing?
Because a lot of teams don't want to admit to themselves that they have a worse off program.
Absolutely. And that's what it comes down to. And I get it. If, you know, you go to events week after week and year after year and get your ass kicked over and over again, it's easy to develop some resentment. And remember, like, the flip side of this is, like, you know, we talk about privilege in society. The best teams in first have natural advantages. They have mentors, they have experience, they have bigger budgets. So those teams are playing on a bit of a different level. And yeah, it's definitely frustrating to try and compete with those teams. And, you know, it's easy for us to say, oh, if you just work harder, you can hit that level. Some teams may never able to hit that level. But this program isn't life, you know. It's there's avenues and there's opportunities. Like I think if you're so caught up in outcomes, then you will let the it's easy to let the jealousy and resentment build. But I think teams need to be looking at their own program, evaluating your own strengths and weaknesses, and trying to figure out how to be the best team you can be. And, you know, that goes back to like my design principles about, you know, if you are one of these teams who's got the lower budget or whatever, just go do gears. Don't try and shoot any balls. Just go do gears and like find your niche and whatever, and you'll be successful.
All right, let's move on and talk about kind of getting back to the Steamworks a little bit, but I want to kind of relate it to some of the other years that we've had as well too. So one of the other potential unknowns this year is how robots and pilots are going to be reacting with the field, right? And there's questions that come up. You know, are the springs going to hold up? Are they going to be droopy after a few matches? Are robots who climb, are they going to be able to consistently trigger the touchpad? So Karthik, as I'm going to ask you first, as we look at this year's game, and if we look at even other years' games too, we can bring that up as reference. But as we look at Steamworks, where do you kind of find those continuity issues that might come into play on, you know, our teams might be able to score really well, and they might be able to score a gear or something, but a pilot could drop the gear or something like that, or the spring could drop the gear, that sort of thing. How do you prep for that?
I mean, so this game's got has more unknowns going into week one than I can recall. But I talk about unknowns, not about like, hey, how many gears is each alliance going to score? But I'm talking about unknowns with the field. What does it take to trigger a touchpad? How fast are the boilers actually going to process fuel? No one knows. You know, like they said 5 balls a second, but I've also heard that sometimes the boilers process up to 15 to 20 balls a second. That's major. So it's very interesting that there's a lot of things we just don't know. How droopy are the springs going to be after 10 qualifying matches, after 100 qualifying matches? Will the same springs be used week after week? Will the springs be replaced every day? We don't know, but there's a lot of variability there. And then touching into what you were talking about, Tyler, like this year's game, it's not simply about scoring or completing the game task. There's then the triggering of the scoring. So, for example, I look at all these videos and look at the scrimmages. So many teams can hang in that they can raise their robot to the right height. Can they trigger the touchpad? I don't know. Do they know? No. Teams, you know, who think they have a gear auto, but it takes them 13 seconds to get the gear on the peg. Is 2 seconds enough time to lift the gear, put it on, and crank, do whatever Steamwork nonsense? I don't know. Do they know?
That's a new intro song, by the way. It says Steam powered. Crank, do whatever Steam nonsense.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so, like, I don't know how you simulate these things. Like, for example, like 1678's put out some crazy videos. The first video of them, you know, dropping a gear and, you know, shooting 40 some odd balls. How many of those balls will process? We don't know. They're 2-gear auto. Will that second gear count? Will the human be able to get it on there? I don't know. And so a lot is going to be learned on practice day of week 1. So like, I mean, you know, Pauline, you're like the active mentor in this discussion. How are you guys prepping for this?
It's insane to me, honestly, because we're trying to build as best of an accurate field as we can to try to do what you were saying, but no one's going to be able to build like the boiler fully with all the mechanisms and a full airship. It's insane to me. Like, what irked me the most and where I think first really dropped the ball is when you're building a kickoff field, they'll give you a lot of the resources and the field elements, but this year they really didn't get, because I host a kickoff, they really didn't give us much. So when teams came, they didn't really get to see a field, and they're never going to be able to see a field until their first practice at a competition, which is insane to me. So we're just trying to combat that by trying to make it as realistic as possible. But like you said, we'll never know. Like, are the springs going to be changed? How is the boiler processing? I'll never know that stuff until I hit competition day. Which
And we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, but there are people who know how the boiler works. And there are teams who know how the boiler works and have seen videos of the boiler working and seen the inner workings of it. But most teams haven't. But there's like this back channel information, and I hate that stuff. I just wish it would be transparent for everyone to see. You know,
that's important information.
Not just teams who know people, you know, to be able to see that. And like the boiler processing one is the biggest one. And like my big concern is, I hope both boilers process at the same rate. I hope that it's the rate of the boiler processing is just purely a function of how many balls are in the boiler. And if that's consistent, that's fine. What would suck is if two alliances shoot 40 balls into their boilers in autonomous at the exact same rate at the exact same time, and one processed more fuel than the other. That would suck.
So is there anything in the manual in regards to like variances for that, or like tolerances is what I meant to say, on how that can be or anything like that? Or is that just something that's not known?
It says in the manual, and Pauline, you'll have to correct me because you probably know better than I do this year. It said the boiler processes at a rate of approximately 5 feet per second. I mean, 5 balls per second.
It's something like that. There's a slight tolerance on it. So that's how it processes. But it says like in the little description that like it's not always this or something like that. You'll just have to go with it. We can look it up.
Yeah, like, I mean, so I want to temper this by a bit. I think Steamworks is one of the best games they've done. It's got so many cool elements. I love the 3 distinct types of scoring, but I just worry that there's all these little things that are going to be frustrating for teams. I mean, the touchpad's one of them. Like, I keep thinking about this one, and I'm thinking about the audience. So the audience is watching a match, and let's assume that they can see all 6 davits, you know? And like, say 6 robots go up, and they think, wow, 6 robots hung, and everyone's going crazy. But then only like 3 lights go off because they didn't, you know, trigger it, whatever. And I mean, like, I do game design for like a living. And one of the things we talk about when we design games is that you want your tasks to look hard to the audience, but actually be easy for teams to do, because it's better than things that look easy to the audience, but are hard for teams to do. Because audience is not going to understand why these teams aren't getting points for hanging. It's going to be like, well, they're hanging, you know, they're off the ground. And so that's a little,
and that's going to be hard for us. It can be for like Game Day Live too, to once again, to that general audience, is how do we convey to them like, oh yeah, they're up in the air, but that didn't count. Here's why, sort of thing. Yeah.
And, you know, in other years, it's just been a matter of getting above a certain height, which is like very iron. And like, I understand why they did the touchpad thing. And someone smarter than me was just gonna have to tell me, but like, if they just didn't have that steel channel on the touchpad, I think this challenge wouldn't be that hard. But the steel channel seems to be like the hanging blocker. Like, it's freaking Dikembe Mutombo out there, you know, saying no hang. So.
And then no one will have experience with it because they don't have a real climber.
Well, let me ask on here, Pauline and Karthik. So I've seen some robots that have, they do like either a ratchet strap or climb, but they have a bar on top of their robot, right? That seems to go near vertical when they're climbing. So are those robots potentially not going to hit that touchpad then?
Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to visualize what you're saying. So if you just got a horizontal bar, you know, a roller, and you go up straight vertical, there's a good chance you won't trigger. But if you go up straight and then you like kind of tilt because your center of gravity or whatever at an angle, then maybe you're gonna hit it. Or, I think the smartest thing that teams have been doing is, you have your hanging roller at this level, but then you have a bar like above it that will hopefully trigger. Or I don't know, like Pauline, what's Code Orange done to, or is it that top secret information?
It's a little top secret, but I mean, I think everyone's basically following the robot in 3 days Velcro kind of thing. So it's just like a winch system basically, but I don't want to share too many details.
Yeah, that's totally fair, because I'm sure there's some teams out there who found a really simple and cute way to make sure they trigger it every time, and that's going to be valuable right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. All right. So before we get to our next subject, we just want to take a quick break and just thank everybody. And we'll get your names at the end of the show, but everybody who's followed and subscribed over the last couple of days, especially with premiere night on Saturday. I mean, we had nearly 200 follows during that, so very appreciative. But just to remind you, if you like what's going on here, if you enjoy Candidly Speaking, or like some of our other shows that we do, like Recap and First Help Now and Game Day Live, just please click that follow button up on top. We would appreciate that. Or if you're watching on the YouTube archive, give us a subscribe as well. And don't forget, for Twitch, you can actually subscribe to our channel now. Our custom emoticons are in review right now. So we're going to be having a red and blue lines emoticon. And we're going to be asking for our subscribers to submit 2 more emoticons, because we just got approved for another 2 to submit as well. So we'd be delighted to have you on board as part of Fun Nation. So go ahead and do that. And don't forget, you can get free subscriptions each month with Twitch Prime as well. So the follow up a little bit more on Steamworks as well, I'm trying to think from a processing standpoint to give an example of what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to find out if it's going to be more challenging to complete a game task or actually finish the requirements. And we talked about this a little bit on here. So I'm trying to think how to word this. I think we kind of covered this for the most part, but yeah, let's move on instead. Since we're only going to Candidly Speaking really once a month going on here, and so we're going to be looking at, March or late February, sometime in March, and then April. So there's going to be a lot happening in between. I'd like to get your opinions on kind of Steamworks so far and what your viewpoints. And I have one more discussion topic after that. But as we've seen the Week 0 event, as we're looking forward to some of these other events coming up, and Pauline, I don't know what weeks Code Orange is competing at and what events you're at, so I'd like to hear about that. How do you feel this game is going to evolve from both a robot standpoint and from fixing things like the audience viewpoint, like especially the audience that's actually there in person? How do you see that evolving over the next few weeks?
All right. So Code Orange is going to 2 regionals in California. We got off the wait list, so woohoo. The San Diego Regional and the Orange County Regional, week 2 and 5. So I didn't watch a lot of week 0, but my first initial reaction at the beginning of season was I didn't really like the game. I thought the people in the field were really stupid. They were going to hit in the face. But watching a little week 0, the shooters are cool. Like, undoubtedly, balls flying fast into goals are super cool. So I like that aspect. I wish I could see it, but it's okay. I know for California, we've been talking a lot about how we're going to do our webcasts, because we're our regional events, so we're a little bit more put together than districts. We have some standards.
Hey,
but I'm for
now.
districts. I'm for districts, y'all. Okay, but we have Show Ready and all those people. So we were talking about, we want to put a webcam up above, so you have the full field view from above and you could see everything going on. And I know for off-season events that I help run, we were going to do the same thing. So I hope that becomes standard for First to do, just an over-the-top thing so everyone can see what's going on. I'm not sure how to fix the audience issue, honestly. These venues are already picked out, and a lot of them only have one side audience access, so I'm not sure. I hope they could put a better view up on the scoring board, something like that. We'll see how it goes, but I think robots are just going to get quicker and quicker as the season goes on. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
All right, so the follow up on that too. From, I guess I'll give my opinion on this from an evolution standpoint of the game. I'm really curious. The one thing that we talked about this a little bit, that kind of irks me a little bit, is that we saw that Trek device come out because they're worried about the fuel getting stuck in the boiler. And I think that they said that the Shrek can process 2 fuel per second or something like that, compared to the boiler processing 5. And I'm really curious because, we've seen these amazing reveal videos already, and we know that reveal videos are different than how actual performance could be, but we also know some of these top tier teams are going to be able to score just a ridiculous amount of balls and fuel inside those boilers. I'd really like to see a better solution that can just, not necessarily from the Shrek thing, but from the boilers themselves, that just be able to process more on it. I'm really that really confuses me on why that, it's been limited to the 5 balls per second, or why the design was that. So I could see some sort of modification to how that's done. I don't know where that would come from, if it's less fuel on the fuel, if it's just a different boiler retrofit that's going to make it a little bit different. But I'm really worried about, these teams that are going to be these high capacity teams that literally can't score anymore. Their scoring can't get processed because they're scoring so much. And it kind of reminds me of 2006 a little bit, where so much would just get put into that they have to bring out that pokey stick, right?
Pokemon.
Yeah, pokey, yeah. And just, I'd really like to see a solution long term from that. From the game itself, I think one of the things we talked about, of course, with climbing is climbing this year is unusually more common, I think, than what previous years will be. And I don't know if I think a lot of it's because you bring your own rope, right, or whatever product you want to call that, it's going to be dangling from there. And I think that can add a lot of excitement to the end game, having that. I like having end game aspects. I think that adds a cool excitement to it. One of the things too I want to mention as well is defense. And a lot of teams, I hear from a lot, defense could play huge factors here. I'm really curious on how that's going to play out, because as we look at how First has kind of been evolving their games, it looks like, if you look at last year and this year, and that's not too much of a sample size, but they have an option for defense, but it looks like in many things it might behoove you to just play straight up offense for things. So I don't know, we've talked about defense before, Karthik. I know you and I have, but I don't know how you guys see that evolving. How is defensive play going to evolve as we get into further and further weeks? Are we going to see more of it, or are we going to see more on just the offense side?
More.
So, before I get to defense, I want to just go back to the Shrek.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know why it's called a Shrek. I don't know why they tried to name it after an ogre. It's just, the acronym isn't even Shrek, but anyways.
Well, it's SREK.
Yeah. So this is where First, we're like big proponents of this, Tyler, you and I, of asking First to be more transparent about something. And so this is a case where First was transparent about their backup solution, and then everyone's shitting on it. It's like, so I feel a little bit bad, because yes, 2 balls per second is not okay. Don't get me wrong. But as a backup, last resort solution, if it means that the regional can continue going on, okay, it is what it is. And just because they have this backup solution doesn't mean they're going to use it. And hopefully we go through an entire season without having to see Shrek and find out how many layers that onion has,
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Big reference back there. Hey, now you're an all-star. Get your game on. But I think everyone's overreacting a little bit about it. If the Shrek ends up being used at every event, we have a problem. If the red boiler has a Shrek and the blue boiler has a normal processor, well, that's ridiculous. That's unfair, and someone should walk onto the field and just refuse to let a match be played. That's so dumb. But I do think kudos to them for having a solution in case something goes wrong, and hopefully it just isn't a thing. So that's that on Shrek. As for defense, I don't know. I'm still stuck on last year where I played in Ontario all year long, and there was crazy defense going on, and I got the champs, and then everyone forgot that defense was an option except for the 2026 Alliance. Where it was just 3 offense against 3 offense, and it just it made no sense to me. I was stunned at how little defense was being played, and I get it that regions develop their own style of play, and it just kind of blew my mind that so few regions came to play defense, and that so few teams who were offensive weren't willing to take a step back and play defense for the betterment of their alliance. And I just thought there were so many matches where 195 and 987. I love that alliance. Those were 2 of the best teams in First last year. But man, 1405 just shut them down. And it was that was the complete right call to play defense there. And realistically, if if the referee had been a little bit better in the finals on Einstein, defense, wins it or whatever. And so, like, I get if you are on an alliance like the one that Code Orange was on, where you had 3 rock star offensive robots, where like your third robot is good enough to be a captain in other divisions, but then they somehow get benched on the last match of Einstein for a team that got stuck in the moat. I don't know.
Don't talk about it.
I get it. But when you're playing against an alliance like that with 3 rock star offensive robots, you're not going to outscore them. So you got to play D. And I know I just went back to last year, but I think defense is going to be huge again in this game. I think it is so easy to, mess up teams as they're trying to score a gear. And it's, if you're a team that's shooting 5, 6, 7 balls per second and someone hits you while you're shooting and you can't hold ground or your turret can't adjust, you're going to miss a whole stream of balls. And like, that's massive, especially when, it takes 120 balls scored in teleop to get you your ranking point. Like, there's not time to be wasting these balls. And I think also, so like, if your alliance can get 3 rotors but has no shot of getting the 4th, of going from 7 to 12 gears, towards the end of the match, what else are you going to be doing other than playing
That's
defense?
a good point, yeah.
So that's where defense always comes into play when teams don't have other things to do. Look at 2014, which was the most defensive game we've had in years. Why was it so defensive? There was only 2 balls on the field, but 6 robots. And so, like, 4 of the robots didn't have balls. So what else are they going to do except for play defense? And so at this point, once a team realizes, hey, we're not going to get another rotor, and we're either already got our KPA ranking point or we're to have no shot of getting it, they're just going to play defense and then go hang. And so, like, gears until you get your 3rd rotor, defense and hang is a major strategy that's going to be a thing. So, well, all that being said, I thought this last year, and then teams just didn't play defense for whatever reason. So I don't know, like, maybe teams get on mind.
I think it's different though, because last year you had your protected zones of the defenses. This year you barely have any protected zones until really you're climbing. So teams are going to utilize that to their advantage and try to block everyone. Because when we get to the really fast shooters, you're not going to be able to outscore. You have to slow them down.
Yep. I mean, I've been giving the same presentation at Championship for like 10 years now, and it always says, like, if you're going to beat the number 1 alliance, you're not going to outscore them. That's just not going to be a thing unless there's just been terrible, terrible picking, or it's death by serpentine, which is another thing we could talk about, which I think is going to happen this year. But if you're going to beat them, you've got to find a way to slow them down somehow, and that means taking out the weak wildebeest and going after them. So.
So one last thing I want to bring up before we get to some questions as well is autonomous mode. And the reason I want to bring this up is I reference 118's release video where they sent both their robots to go to the hopper area to collect balls in autonomous, right? And they're both shooting at the same time. How do you work out that strategy with your alliance partners if you really, really want to get that KPA? And does one robot just do it that's really reliable? Or how do you work that out where both robots can score enough and still have the boilers process in autonomous?
I don't know how fast the boilers process. I don't know. That goes back to our original topic. Like,
yeah,
but not even that. Okay, not even the boilers processing, but you think about the opening that is on the top boiler, right? If you have 2 robots simultaneously shooting, how do you figure that out in regards to getting all those, or not even all, but the majority of the fuel to score in that boiler if you have 2 robots shooting?
Practice day, man. On practice day, when they open the filler line, if there's another team that I want to play with in the elims and the finals, I get on the practice field and I try and set up that, not the practice field, but the competition field during the practice matches to set that up and test it out to see if it works, to see if because you're right, there's issues with the mouth of the boiler, how much room there is, ball collisions in the air. Teams who are shooting right now are already having their own shots collide with each other. The double one, it's crazy. But like, I think there's going to be some top-end teams, like Citrus Circuits showed it, that, who can hit 30, 35 balls in auto. And I don't know, let's say that 25 of those process, you're on a good path to getting your KPA bonus. But there's a lot of unknowns right now. We just don't know.
Yeah. I want to see that happen during an event, though. See how that works.
I think you're more likely. I mean, the coordination to get to both hoppers is difficult.
I don't think
And
it's going to happen during the regional or district season. I think it
I
might
would
happen during the championships.
I would think it would be I think it might be more likely to happen in a regional or a district, just because that's where you're more likely to have two teams who will have practiced together
That's true.
and could have set that up.
It's going to happen week 1. I'm calling it right now at the Hub City Regional. Robonauts and Roboteers. Calling it right now.
Roboteer's team number again?
2481 World Champs.
Oh, 2481 from Illinois. So I'm thinking they're awesome, but I'm thinking it's more likely to happen with a team that has gone to JSC to practice with 118.
Maybe, yeah, that's a good point.
I know Torque practices with them sometimes. I know Kryptonite practice. I don't know if those teams are at that event. I still haven't done my research yet, but
Kryptonite's there. I don't know if Torque is there.
So then, a Kryptonite 118 pairing could be where you would see the double attack the boiler.
You're saying Texas Torque, you're saying, Karthik?
Yeah.
Or Torque. Okay, yeah, Texas Torque is there, yeah.
Yeah, so some of those combos. But I think what we will see is we'll see someone go for the hopper and auto, and another team just shoot their preloads at the same time.
Sure.
And so we'll definitely see that, and that'll be what tells us what's going on,
That's a good follow-up for next time we meet. Just kind of analyze how that went through. So, Pauline, any last comments about this before we move on?
No, we can move on.
Okay. We do have we got a bunch of questions from the audience. So some are apparently everybody has a fetish with you and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or you have a fetish with it, one of the two. But we'll get to those in just a little bit. So couple questions, and we'll just kind of take 30 seconds to a minute on each one of these for each person. How many regionals will the top seeds lose, primarily because there aren't enough climbing robots? So by the time you talked about the Serpentine thing, Karthik, so by the time it gets back around, specifically they asked about climbers. Are top seeds going to be able to get a climber?
I think there will be a large element of death by Serpentine this year. We saw it in 2014, where there were some events where there weren't enough robots to make a 3-assist alliance, and so the number one seed, it happened to 11-14 at 2 events, as the number one beat the number one seed or beat on the number one alliance, death by Serpentine there. It's really, I don't think it's going to be as big of a thing at regionals, where you got like 50, 60 teams, but there are district events with 25 teams, 26 teams, 29 teams this year. Like you're hard pressed to get a team that can move, let alone a team that can hang. And
yeah, that's true.
Especially if it's early in the season, most of the top teams won't have their cheesecake ready. Now some will, but if you don't have a cheesecake hanger that you can slap on someone, yeah, it could be bad. On the other hand, the reports out there are that so many teams have hangers right now. And if these hangers can trigger the touchpad, and the touchpad is easier to trigger than it seems, then maybe it isn't as much of an issue. But at those small events, man. Oof.
I have a follow-up question to that in a moment, but I want to get Pauline's opinion on that as well.
I think it's going to happen, especially like Karthik said, at those really small events, your last place teams are not going to be able to even move. It's going to happen, and hopefully teams will have their cheesecake ready, but like he said, first week probably won't be done. People are still putting, we didn't even bag 30 pounds worth of our stuff because we had so much to do. So people are not going to have their cheesecake ready week 1 unless they're super prepared. And this game, everyone's behind. So I think it's going to be a thing.
So I've been
go ahead.
I've been hoping for years for a real death by Serpentine year, because when that happens, there will be some teams, unethical ones, who will realize, oh man, it is not a good spot to be the number one seed, and they will start throwing matches. And why do I want this to happen? Not because I want people to throw matches. No, I hate throwing matches, but I would love to see death by Serpentine to cause the death of the Serpentine.
All right, we got to keep moving on here. This kind of roll in, and this could be really a question. So opponent Nik asked, and I'm going to kind of rephrase. He said, what is your number one thing, the cheesecake at champs? But I'm going to just kind of ask in general, and it could be climbers to that. And Pauline, I know you probably don't want to talk about Core in particular, but Pauline, what would you say is going to be the number one cheesecake at competition?
Okay, so I think climbers And if you could get a really easy gear cheesecake, then that would be really helpful for a lower rank third or fourth robot. Work on a gear cheesecake, and I think it'd be solid.
All right, that's what they're doing. Karthik, what do you think?
I think the hanger is harder, but I think because again, we talked about this on our cheesecake episode where when you have a cheesecake with a motor, it just the complication is exponential. There are passive gear mechanisms. We've already seen it this year. You could literally just have a stick on a robot that they hang a gear off of, and if you can put some drive straight code into them, they will drive straight onto a peg, and then the pilot dude will pull it right out of there. So I think there will definitely be some passive cheesecake gearing or gearage or whatever they're calling it.
All right. What style? Said 1458 asks, what style drivetrain do you think has the most successful? What do you think the most successful robots will have this year? This is kind of that timeless question. But if we look at Steamworks in general, what kind of drivetrain do you feel will be most successful?
Pauline, do you want the easy answer, or can I take it?
I mean, I'm super biased, so I will always say West Coast Drive.
I mean, I'll go a little bit more generic than Pauline. I'll go the most successful drivetrain will be the same drivetrain that's been the most successful drivetrain for every freaking game, and that's tank drive, either 4 wheels or 6 wheels.
Yes.
There will be some really, really good teams who will make swerve work, and there will be some other teams who try swerve and are not good. And then there will be Mecanum teams who will get blacklisted by most of the top teams in first for just having Mecanum.
Okay, if Nightcrawler is not doing Mecanum this year, then nobody should be doing Mecanum anymore. That's my opinion to that. So they were a team known for Mecanum, and that's just not happening. So, okay, Karthik, last year the low bar scared you, says Caltran. What scares you this year?
I am scared by the amount of teams who are trying to do gears. They're trying to pick up balls. They're trying to shoot with a turret. They're trying to hang the do everything teams because 118, 148, they should be doing everything. So many of these other teams, it's like, hey, you're a team that, usually doesn't make the elimination rounds at your regionals or districts, but you think you should be doing everything in the game. I was actually having an email conversation with Dr. Joe, and he was, we were talking about how shooting's really only going to be a thing that matters for the top 10% of teams in first. But we kind of said the problem is there are more than 10% of teams in first who believe they're in the top 10% of teams in first. And teams just overrate their ability. And so I think so many teams could have benefited by building a robot like 340 did. I know they dropped their video today. Yeah. And it's just a gear and hang robot. And that robot's going to be amazing. And I've seen so many other teams who are shooting this year. It's like, you are not good. Your shooter makes 30% of your shots. You were just wasting time, and you're hurting your alliance by not scoring gears. And so I really look forward to those matches where a team misses 3 rotors by 1 gear, but there was one team that missed 100 shots. It's going to be a thing.
Oh yeah, it will happen. Absolutely.
These are things when I was, actively on a team, it drove me crazy. Because you be paired with that garbage, but now as just a spectator, I'm just gonna laugh and be like, "Wow, you suck."
Pauline, does anything scare you this year?
The same thing. Teams trying to do everything, and the boiler processing is always scary. That's just scary to me.
Yeah, totally agree.
So on the boiler processing, we don't know a lot about it, but I have been hearing rumbles that it processes a lot faster than 5 balls per second. So especially when
that'd be fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if somebody from the Week 0 event could maybe verify that or something.
I don't think anyone made enough shots for the boiler to ever process.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think was it Airstrike? I think was making a ton of shots during that. So I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good point though. There weren't probably enough robots to have something like that. All right, a couple more.
By the way, I just had that on. Just
oh, somebody only does. I thought there was a robot on Airstrike's Alliance that was scoring a lot.
Was it 125?
That's the only team I can remember from Week 0.
125 was in the other alliance. It was somebody on Airstrike's Alliance. I forget. That's okay. All right. Before we get to your Marvel Cinematic Universe questions, Karthik.
Can we talk about 125 for a second?
Yeah, please.
Please. Their release video came out today.
Right.
It's so great.
Yeah, that's kick ass.
Either that video is digitally edited, or that is crazy fire rate. And like I've been telling people all year long that like fire rate is an overrated stat. Instead of looking at balls shot per second, we should be looking at balls made per second, blah, blah, blah. But that is still so cool. I mean, just like machine guns shoot 20 rounds per second, and they're getting like, at least 12, 13 balls a second. That is, I mean, kudos to them for coming up with that. Like,
and their hopper is insane. The way they feed
really
their
cool.
shooter is just so good. I wish I
So,
thought that.
It's like somebody coined it. It's like a paintball gun, right?
So
Or a
Pauline,
paintball
as the mech eng on the call, you want to describe it to us? Like, sorry, Nick, you're like the producer, man. But
Nobody can hear you. Nobody cares.
Oh my
Nick.
God, don't put me on the spot. I had so many classes today.
but like Pauline, like, because like to me, I just see something spinning like a lot of other ones. So have you done like a deeper, slow look at it to see exactly?
I haven't
what's
done a
going on?
deeper slow look at it, but I imagine it's just a motor with like a little piece of Lexan rotating around. That's what I basically
But like,
think it is.
and so here's my question: like, there's other teams doing something similar. Like, what are they doing differently? And I know we'll figure it out by the end of the year, but like, it's just like it blows my mind. Like, look at how I thought 148 and 118 looked fast, and then I saw this. It's mind-boggling.
Sure, it's insane. It's probably, like you can see in their hopper, like it's placed, like they have enough constraint on the ball, so they have enough contact, so it's able to get out there quickly. I think it's just they figured out the right geometry, which a lot of teams just played with and tried to figure something out. You could tell they worked at it.
Well, that's true, because I guess, in 2015, people asked about 11-14's intakes. It's like, how did you get them so good? I'm just like, we just got the geometry right. And so that might just be it. There might have been, and like, it does look like I've seen some photos where it seems like they've got some sort of like seashell Fibonacci type shape, and that maybe there's some magic geometry there. I don't know. I like Tyler, you should get Brando on the show at some point. And be
Well,
like,
we'll have Christine on the show for a fun recap tomorrow because she does the robot drawings. So yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm like, man, I have so many questions for her.
I am going to tune in and watch so you can get Christine to explain how that hopper works.
Yeah, we definitely will. I don't know if she's watching, and hopefully not, because we're going to put her on the spot for that. So, or if you are watching, just be prepared because we're going to we're going to ask you about it. So,
apparently our producer knows how it works, but it's top secret information.
So hurt.
What a jerk!
This is why you're not allowed to talk on air, Nick.
Yes, exactly right. So, all right. Last question. This can be pretty quick. Would you rather have hopefully it's right. Would you rather have 3 hoppers and 2 gears scored in auto, or 2 hoppers and 3 gears scored in auto? That's too much math for me.
So
what
do you say? What is 3 like 3 hoppers full or what?
Yeah, I'd rather.
I think
3 full hoppers.
Yeah, I'd definitely take the 150 points.
Yeah.
3 gears is 160 though.
Are we assuming it all makes it?
Yeah, you do get the KPA.
3 gears is 160.
And the KPA, right?
I thought 3 gears is 100. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's 120 for 3 gears. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Man, I told you I can't do math.
I think a lot of depends on what that alliance can do in teleop. If you think about it, because, for example, if you have an alliance that has weak ball intakes, it's so crucial that you get hoppers early, because the hoppers are going to be spilled right at the start of the match.
Yeah.
If you got teams with wicked intakes, then it's a little bit different. Also, by putting that many balls into, like 150 balls into the boiler, right away you're going to overflow their station, and meaning that you're going to be able to get balls right back right away to start the match right on your side of the field. So you can start to build one of those 469 life cycles.
One quick thing somebody asked, and I just want to ask this. Pauline, what's with the banner behind you, by the way?
It's from the Fosters filming. I wanted to emulate being mentor built, obviously, so I put it in the background.
Hey, Pauline, what was the like tagline from that team on the show?
Oh yeah.
Bitches get stuff done. Is that what it is?
Yeah, boy.
He's such a bitch because bitches get things done. Bitches get stuff done.
Oh god.
But I really think on the banner it should say like winner and then says because bitches get stuff done right on the bottom.
Honestly, I wouldn't mind a banner that says that. Give it to our sponsors, be great.
Yes. All right. 2 last questions and we're gonna wrap up the show. Like I don't know what's with these MCU questions, Karthik. Do you know anything about this, or have you been talking about MCU?
I made one post on Sheep, just one single post where I said that 118's release video, especially with the song they used, had the same kind of vibe as the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer, or at least the middle part of it. And now people all want to ask me about the MCU, which I love. Like everything that Marvel's done with those, like with the Phase 1 and Phase 2 movies, and I'm completely jacked for Guardians coming out, and especially Spider-Man and Thor Ragnarok. But so, what was the exact question, or did people just want me to rip
well,
off?
we'll ask everybody real quick. What is everybody's favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe character? So if we're taking Marvel Cinematic Universe in particular, so the actors matter a lot then too.
So I'll go third. Yeah, I'll let you guys go first because I have a longer answer.
Black Widow.
I have always been an Iron Man fan, like way before like Iron Man was popular and stuff. So Robert Downey Jr., his acting is absolutely superb with it. And yeah, he's a dick and an asshole, but maybe I relate to that. I don't know.
It's emulated after Elon Musk, so it makes sense.
Yeah, right. Elon Musk is Iron Man.
So for me, like it's so hard just to pick one, but like before the MCU existed, my favorite comic book hero was the Hulk, and I loved the idea of Bruce Banner being like this super genius, you know, like one of the 5 smartest people in the Marvel universe. But then like he's also like, you know, he rages out and then he's the strongest force in the Marvel universe with like unlimited strength. He gets stronger as things going on. And I think they portrayed him really well in the movies because he's got that like sarcastic, dry wit. So I'm a big fan of his. Agent Coulson from the first few movies and now Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is just hilarious and like this mild-mannered guy who's like a badass spy. And then I'm super, super pumped for next year's Black Panther movie. The Black Panther is such a cool hero and a cool concept, you know, because, you know, I love how people are like, well, it's so because, you know, the story goes that he's from Wakanda, which is this fictional African nation, which is actually the most advanced nation in the Marvel world. And people are like, that's unrealistic. How could someone be so advanced from Africa? It's like, no, when you say that, so that's called racism.
Yeah,
you know, and
right.
so the Black Panther is just such a cool, like, you know, he's royalty, he's a king, but he's got these superpowers, and he's also like a super genius who went to Cambridge. So
they portrayed him really, really well in Civil War.
Yeah, and I think the next movie is going to be even better. But then I'm so jazzed for Spider-Man: Homecoming. It's going to be great.
So good.
Yeah,
you know,
I really like that actor. Actually, he really got me. I was down on Spider-Man.
And I love that they're putting them back in high school again, like where Spider-Man belongs. And like, you know, I don't think there's going to be a Mary Jane in this movie, but I'd love to find out who she. It's, you know,
I want to see Tony Stark just hit on his aunt more, on Aunt May.
Yeah, but like realistically, like all I can think is we're only 15 months away from Avengers Infinity War, when Thanos is going to come and wreck shit. So yeah.
And you have that crossing Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers and stuff too going on. So that's really cool. All right. But do you believe Marvel should try to buy back the Fantastic Four franchise?
No.
Or anybody bring back the Fantastic Four franchise? I didn't see that last week.
I saw the last one. I was on a date for the last one. It was absolutely terrible.
That's so you broke up with.
If Marvel were to bring back the Fantastic Four, you would have to wait and let the stench wear off a bit from these last few movies. And then I would probably try and just slowly bring them in. Like I'd bring Reed Richards in because he has such an influential role in various plots. But I think the reason to bring them in wouldn't be for the Fantastic Four per se. It would be for Doom and to have that villain, and also for the Skrulls, because then you could do a Skrulls invasion storyline, which could span like 8 movies.
Yeah, it never ends, anyways.
That's very true.
So, all right. Somebody wants to. At some point, we'll do a full hour show of Karthik talking Marvel Cinematic Universe. But until then, so let's wrap up here. We've been going for an hour, and we need to move on. We have so much going on this week, guys, that we're going to try to keep shows a little bit shorter so we don't just have 4 days a week of content that are all 3 hours each. But we do want to thank everybody for helping make this show possible. And if you want more First Robotics in your life, please just give that follow or subscribe button up there. We would just greatly appreciate it. Everything we're getting back in right now is going into making these shows bigger and better. Game Day Live is coming straight out of your contributions. It's what we're putting in the show. It's what we're doing to outfit people to make sure we're ready to go on there. So we'd love it if you subscribe to us, or if you followed it, become a member of Fun Nation and do that as well. I do want to thank everybody who has followed or subscribed us today. We do have a few, so thank you very much to Fresh Rider, Titanium Dad 1, Buckle BD, Sascar, Try This 2077, Oriole Lane, Reverdo 29, Gilsons, CMC Bride for following, and a huge thank you to Said1458 for subscribing, Pirate Kitty Cat for subscribing, and Gilsons for subscribing. Thank you very much, and welcome into the Fun Nation. Fresh badges coming right now for you, and fresh emotes coming soon. And make sure you look at your emails. We're going to be sending out an email very soon asking you guys for more opinions on emoticons. We sent one out to subscribers about a week and a half ago, but since we're getting more, we want your opinions on what we can do for that. So thank you very much for becoming a member of Fun Nation. Don't forget as well that we do have t-shirts available on our website, thanks to Two Pencil Designs at firstupdatesnow.com. So make sure you go and do that. Calitran, we just got your order for that, by the way. Your fresh t-shirt will be on the way in the next couple of days. Thank you very much. And a huge thank you to our producer, Nik Olsen, for making this show possible. Always doing a great job behind the scenes. Even if he tells me the wrong math in my ear, we forgive him for that. But he does an amazing job. And if you guys saw premiere night, and how much, for those who called in, if you saw how much he was busting his ass to get this done as well as he could and as amazing as it was, Nik does a fantastic job and is going to be critical to getting Game Day Live up and running. So thank you so much, Nik, for that. Speaking of which, we do have a full buffet of shows each week right now. So plan on content 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, pretty much all the way through the end of regional district competition season. So Tuesdays, we're going to have recap every single week. So starting tomorrow, we'll recap a few of the events going on, or I should say preview a few of the events going on. Then we start the FRC Top 25. Big Hit coming back once again, and we'll be looking for your community input as well. Saturdays and Sundays, we do have Game Day. This week, we have the Hub City Regional, which will be on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we're going to be covering the New England Granite State District event. So both pretty high-end, high-energy events that we'll be covering as well. We'll definitely be looking for your feedback, too, Fun Nation, in regards to what we can do better for that. Realize a lot of our gearing for this is going to be for people who don't know what's going on in First, but we definitely want to make sure that you're getting value out of this as well. And every Monday, we'll have a different rotational show as well for you, too. So on behalf of myself, Karthik, Nik, and thank you so much to Pauline for being our guest today. Did you have a good time, Pauline?
Yeah, it was great. So fun.
Awesome. And thank you, everybody, for being in chat here today. Thank you to all of our mods. Keeping it clean for the most part. We little bit more go in this show, but that happens, right? That's okay. But thank you so much to our mods for keeping it the way it needs to be. We'll see you next time on First Updates Now. Talk to you then.